Nigga TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yamina Revolution, and we got to deal with this sucker P. Diddy this morning, y'all. Disgusting pervert. But before we do, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button, like, share, subscribe. Let everybody know Core Figure Live. We got morning revolutionary classes, y'all. We got morning revolutionary classes. Let's get into it. I was very disgusted when I seen this pervert. P. Diddy was hit with 120 new lawsuits, and the youngest victim was a 9-year-old boy. You see, all of the people who've been saying, oh, Whitey just going after Puffy, they some perverts, they goddamn self. All y'all who be, oh, why the white man talking to Puffy? I told y'all, why do you give a damn about a scumbag being dealt with? See, they can't walk away from what they've been saying. And now that this coming out, 9-year-old boy forced to do sexual things with Puffy, the humiliation will not stop.
Warning, and I'm very serious here. What I'm about to talk about is extremely disturbing.
All rap clowns going down, man.
Involving children.
Bootleg house niggas.
So, not everybody.
Good morning. Salute, family.
Okay.
This is disgusting, y'all.
As I mentioned earlier today, a press conference was held where it was announced.
And I want y'all to remember this. Remember, I'm still looking for that video I had where it was some people on there talking about people missing the point about the missing children. You remember like the children in Lahaina, Hawaii, that came up missing? I ran a story on that. Nobody know where the children went. A lot of tunnels, a lot of Hollywood celebrities. They like the stuff that revitalized their skin. I can't say what it is on YouTube. They take channels for that. But they liked minors. You know, that's why him and Ellen so cool. You know, it's a lot of disgusting stuff going on with trafficked kids who are now missing as well.
120 people have come forward saying that they are victims of sexual abuse at the hands of Diddy and others that were associated with him. These lawsuits, all 120, will be filed individually in California, New York, and Los Angeles over the next few weeks. Many echo similar things that we've heard before, alleging that Diddy drugged them and took advantage of them, men as well as women. And now,
it's a lot of people, and y'all know y'all heard it. They kept bringing up women. Some women may have been drugged. I got a strong stance against any date raping of women. All that stuff. That's just how I feel. That's disgusting. And you can get killed for that type of shit. I'm always going to say that. I don't give a damn how nobody feel. So, but a lot of niggas did kill. Like, oh, man, cool, man. Man, these women, man, you got to really watch them. Okay, what about the 9-year-old boy? So what about the kids? I want to see you niggas crawfish shot of these kids being date raped and being taken advantage of, like this 9-year-old boy. Oh, what? Was he coming on to Puffy? Oh, was he moving fast? Did he look older than 9?
Children as young as 9 years old at the time of the alleged abuse. Diddy's lawyer has denied all of these allegations, but lawyers lie. That's what they're paid to do. And many of the people who have come forward have proof that they previously went to the police and went to the hospital. And
I'm going to let this play, but I think these perverts be swapping kids for some reason, because I seen how the game was taking his daughter to a Puffy party and she was dressed scantily clad. I couldn't understand, like, what the fuck you got your young daughter dressed like that for? Then I seen how P. Diddy dress his young twin daughters, and then I seen them hugged up on Drake. Hey, it's more than we've got. These people don't care about that. Once you get so rich, I think the rules is you got to give your kids to Hollywood, like Will Smith. I think it's written in their contracts, your kids belong to us. That's serious business.
Or the other. And all of these decades went by without nothing happening to him. A lot to digest. Now we're hearing from one of the lawyers specifics as to what Diddy is said to have done with a few of those children. I just found it so hard to believe when I first heard it, but I obviously knew, I had to contemplate it. And I kept thinking, well, Who? What children? Like, how did Diddy get? Was this child trafficking? Like, what? Now I know.
Now, go back to when I ran the story about the Mexican from the Sinaloa cartel who sued Diddy. What did he say? Diddy ruined his business. He said Diddy contacted him. One of Diddy's people contacted him about procuring underage kids. And this fool from the cartel said that was disgusting. That they do a lot of crimes, but they don't traffic kids. Yeah, right. But he was in court documents saying that Diddy was trying to get underage kids from the Sinaloa cartel. Everybody overlooked that. They're not gonna be able to overlook it no more.
Lawyer says that Diddy lured the 9-year-old boy to an audition with a promise of a record deal, and then allegedly sexually abused him at Bad Boy Records studio in New York City. A 9-year-old. And I'm also going to say, where were the parents? Why would the parents leave a 9-year-old alone with a grown man? What? But, we've seen it time and time again, especially, back when he was even more famous and more relevant and more popular. Some not so good parents make dumb, awful decisions. We've seen it with R. Kelly and so many others. And there are rumors of Justin Bieber, which I don't know. I don't know anything about that, okay?
Yes, you do.
I just hope those Bieber rumors are not true. No. Another accuser claims they were just 15 years old when they were flown out to New York City to attend a party where they were drugged and taken into a private room with Diddy, where he allegedly raped her, R-A-P-E-D, before others took turns having their way with her. What?
Yeah, this motherfucker here know everything. He just playing games. You know everything.
As I mentioned, this attorney claims that a lot of his clients' drinks were laced with xylazine, which is a horse tranquilizer. And this lawyer says there are more minors with more stories to tell. And I hope that these cases do go to trial, but I don't think they will. I think, the reason they are filing 120 is to financially cripple Diddy and force his hand into making settlements out of court, because fighting 120 lawsuits of this nature is a slow, painful process, each one, and a very costly one. And a reminder, this lawyer says that after putting a call out to alleged victims of Diddy, he got 3,000 people that responded. I mean, I have to play devil's advocate. This guy, Tony Busby, the lawyer, had a press conference late last week. Late last week. 3,000 people reached out to you. How do you talk to that many people in depth? How do you get details or lack of details from 3,000 people in less than a handful of days? How do you really accurately, thoroughly vet all of these people? Obviously, Diddy is awful and has done horrific things, but I'm not sure of the veracity of each of these claims, and there seem to be red flags here. Is it just me? I especially would love to hear from some lawyers. If you're watching this, in the comments section, share your
I'm licensed in Texas and in New York. and I'll introduce other members of our team as they speak. As many of you know, our law firm has been at the forefront of some of the most important litigation in the United States. We like the tough cases. We thrive in the complicated cases. We've handled over the last 25 years some very big and very important cases. I believe that this one may surpass them all. There are many facets to this. The conduct we will describe today occurred over more than 20 years. There are many people and many entities involved. And we're going to follow this evidence wherever it takes us. We will find the silent accomplices. We will expose the enablers who enabled this conduct behind closed doors. We will pursue this matter no matter who the evidence implicates. These brave victims who have stepped forward deserve nothing less. The biggest secret in the entertainment industry that really wasn't a secret at all has finally been revealed to the world. The wall of silence has now been broken, and victims are coming forward. Our team has had at this point more than 3,285 individuals contact us with people claiming to have been victimized by Sean Combs. After vetting, we now represent 120 individuals who intend to bring civil claims in civil court against Sean Diddy Combs, as well as claims against many other
That's crazy. 3,000 people reached out.
We will name
a bunch of them called cases, but 3,000.
We file these individual cases. And you should know, to the extent the clients feel comfortable, we also intend to make these individuals available to the authorities, specifically to the FBI. And you should also know a few of them have already been spoken to by the FBI. Now, before we discuss the nature of the claims and claimants themselves, let me comment on the large volume of calls we have received since our first announcement. Even before the indictment of Sean Combs, we had received a small volume of calls and had screened a handful of cases. After the indictment of Sean Combs and the announcement that we were pursuing these claims, the floodgates opened. People who wouldn't otherwise, for a variety of reasons, are now stepping forward to make their
number gonna go off the hook
and to pursue justice. But no, most of these people are scared. They fear backlash in their communities. They fear backlash in their own families. They are afraid of retaliation from the perpetrators and their associates. They are rightly afraid for their own personal safety. I expect that through this process, many powerful people will be exposed. Many dirty secrets will be revealed. We know what we are potentially up against. And as is always the case in situations like this, when a celebrity is involved, people can be downright mean and nasty. You would be shocked at the length fans will go, no matter the evidence to the contrary, to defend celebrities they love. I mean, there's a reason for this word fans. They're fanatics. I've personally already been threatened multiple times on social media. And when I agreed to pursue this, I expected as much. This isn't my first rodeo. But victims who step forward to have their voices heard should not be subjected to that kind of conduct. They should not be targeted. I want to say this, and I want to be clear about it. Although we are vetting each call as stringently as we can, I always start with a mindset that I believe victims. I believe victims because I understand the tremendous courage it takes to step forward. So if you're watching this, please hear me. If you're out there and you have been victimized, you are not alone. There is a great strength in numbers. You can seek redress. You can obtain justice. We can help you, and we will help you. That being said, as stated, we are vetting every call that we receive. We have had to turn away some. For each, we ask for corroboration. For each, we ask for the identity of witnesses. We also have collected pictures, videos, texts, We check venues, we check dates. We want to corroborate that the claims being made have legitimacy and merit. We have on staff now a former detective from the Major Offenders Unit of Houston Police Department who is helping us vet each claim. We're using our common sense. We're being stringent because, as I said, these are not easy cases. They're very tough. The process is hard, and in some cases, the process is very lengthy. These cases are hard to prove. Many times it's the victim's word against the alleged perpetrator. Each of these victims will no doubt be publicly attacked by the alleged perpetrators, and in some cases, the general public. The feckless and cowardly keyboard warrior.
Now, if this cat go to that 9-year-old boy, those minors, those charges is what's gonna get his bitch ass fucked up in that federal prison system, because they're not gonna care. And even the blacks not gonna be able to say, well, we protected Diddy. Shit, the nigga the Aryans run the federal prison, nigga. He's a child. He's gonna be labeled a child molester. You gotta pay. It's gonna be all bad for him. They know what they doing to P. Diddy. They want him to give up other people to them. They know what they're doing. It's gonna be all bad news for boy.
We know what we're up against. We did not enter this fray blindly. I wish it was my last such fray. I wish this type of behavior wasn't so pervasive, but it is what it is, so we will press on. As I said, our law firms have been retained by 120 individuals at this point to pursue cases in civil court against Sean Diddy Combs. You should know, in this group, it is evenly divided between males and females. There are 60 males and 60 females.
Damn, fam. Damn, fam. 60 males. 25 minors. Detailed, graphically, pictures, salute queen, of everything Jetty did. The youngest, 9 years old. Come on, man. This for all the suckers who've been protecting his image, Boosie and all them clown ass niggas coming out. Come on, keep protecting them, nigga. We got a 9-year-old boy here. They showing their true colors. They niggas knew about all this shit. They all been involved.
Who have
all them clowns going down when we don't give a damn about them like
plaintiffs. In this group, 62% identify as African American, 30% are white, and the remainder are Hispanic or Asian.
Terrorizing
the
black.
Victims are from more than 25 states. The majority are from California, New York, Georgia, and Florida. I don't want to focus on the ages of these victims.
Uh-oh.
When we talk about the ages of the victims when the conduct occurred, it's shocking. Our youngest victim at the time of the occurrence was 9 years old. We have an individual who was 14 years old. We have one who was 15.
Oh, they just want his money. Oh, the 9-year-old just want his money. The 14 or 15-year-old, they just after his money. They just want money. Ain't that right, Slim Thug? Huh? Ain't that what we've been hearing for these phone-ass rappers? No, them niggas not getting away with this. I'm going to make a video just addressing all them niggas and what they said. Huh? Just with this 9-year-old young black boy? Was he just chasing the money?
25 of the 120 individuals who are plaintiffs in these cases were minors at the time of the acts complained of.
25 minors.
The time frame of the acts complained of is very wide. The conduct at issue spans from the years 1991 all the way till this year, 2024.
Come on, man. 1991. This is boule Greek freak activity. And we're not gonna let the Greek freaks get away from this, because this nigga is a born-bred Greek freak, nigga. His handlers was Greek freaks. This is fraternity BS. And that's why I tell you, you gotta watch these fraternity Greek freaks talking about they grooming boys to be men. We got to look deeper into this shit. Because it's always these frat niggas who want to groom your sons to train them how to be men in life. Do you know the rich? Do you know what they go through and what they would do to a boy? All that shit coming out. And we're not letting them get away with this. 1991, nigga. What the hell going on at Moore? Where was that boy? What college that boy was at? What the hell is going on at these fraternities? Huh? Hurt people. What happened to him? He went and done it to all the little black boys he could get his hands on. Anybody come to see him about a record deal was getting sexually assaulted. It's crazy, man.
If you wonder why there are so many alleged victims, that's your answer. We're talking about more than 25 years of this type of conduct. Now, although most of the victims who have stepped forward were victimized after 2015, this has been going on for a very long time.
Bro, I'll tell you, bro, if I see one nigga in my face tell me the white man going after P. Diddy, bro, I'm fucking gonna get a charge that day, bro. Y'all bum me out. Y'all bum me out, bro. I can't wait for one of these people to in my face tell me why they going after P. Diddy. I swear to God on my T lady, rest her soul. Boy, I'm gonna go to prison that day, nigga. What's wrong with these people? Listen to this charge. You niggas can't do it. You black judges wasn't never gonna do it. All y'all seen this country, I wasn't never gonna say nothing. Nothing. Oh, the white man going after. I'm talking. I don't give a damn if it's an alien who deal with you. I don't care. We want justice for our people. We tired of this. And then I tell you this culture been going on in the black community far too long. People been shutting up for the perverted uncles, perverted dope dealers, sleeping with these boys, sleeping with these young boys. That shit been going on far too goddamn long. Far too long. See, these niggas is not manipulating women with their money. No, that's a lie. That's a lie. And we're going to deal with this shit. I'm definitely going to deal with it. Nobody can't shut me up. Nobody can't tell me what to say, nigga. It's going to go all the way down. Salute to our brother James White for the donation to the watch. I swear to God and everything. I'm so glad these niggas went on YouTube and said, niggas chasing money like Slim Thug. And Slim, you would never say that in my presence, bro. You would never say that in my presence, that these kids don't deserve justice. You rappers better shut up. That's serious business, nigga.
Well, think about the fact that some of this conduct occurred 25 years ago, and you wonder why would it take somebody so long to step forward.
To my mouth, man. I'm finna
remind you that
salute, bro. I ain't finna. We finna listen to this because I can't get none of their presence, so they ain't gonna do me no justice yelling. Salute to my brother Roscoe for the donation to the war chest. Say salute, King. These dudes have no shame. No, they ain't got no shame. He's getting exactly what he deserved. He definitely getting exactly what he deserved, nigga. We gonna get some justice in our motherfucking community. And I'm sick of people acting like the white man going after this sick punk. Who else supposed to be going after? They the judges. Who else supposed to arrest them? They the police. What am I missing here? We praying night and day for some justice in our community. Big mama praying. Some of you niggas don't pray no more. You went straight. Your auntie praying. Your daddy praying. Your mama praying. Y'all done made it. Y'all are new people. You don't pray no more. Well, finally some justice getting done with a high-priced punk. And y'all the white man talking to us, man. Boy, we're going to get some justice for him one way or the other. That's serious business.
States in the United States have recognized
shaming us like this.
It's very difficult
molesting our
for
children.
a victim to step forward and to make these types of allegations when something very terrible has happened to them. I'll use New York, the state of New York, as an example. The state of New York has specific statutes.
I'm going to tell you what the problem is, and we got to look this shit in the face. All of our greatest stars that we love so much, they all got on drugs and party like they done some things they weren't supposed to do. They need to fall on their knees and repent, but we will not pretend like that's cool no matter who did it. I don't give a damn if we lose all of our athletes, all of our actors. So what? A new generation will grow who writes it. You did wrong. You did wrong. And we won't protect you. Hell, not like Mel Adams. No, we're not going to come out and put up a black power fist. No, house, nigga. Don't try to use us. No. New leadership, be prepared to step up. Because all these bootleg niggas going down. They always part of this. That's why they scared. You know, a white man. Man, honestly, you niggas going down, bro. That's it.
That are even claims that would typically be.
They take all y'all music off the shelf forever. So what?
Revive such claims, and they can be brought even 25 to 30 years later. Because there's a recognition there in New York and California and other states that it's very difficult for a victim to come forward. And I would respectfully suggest the only reason many of these people are coming forward because they see other victims coming forward. And it gives them some comfort that, hey, I won't be the only one. And I expect more victims will come forward. You know, there's an old saying that says, a lie has great speed, but truth has endurance. The acts complained of in these cases that we're going to file occurred primarily in New York, either Manhattan or the Hamptons, or occurred in California, primarily in Los Angeles, or in Florida, primarily in Miami. Most of these events and incidents occurred at parties, typically after parties, or album release parties, New Year's Eve parties, 4th of July parties, something they called a puppy party, the all-white party, although several of these events occurred at auditions. Many times, especially young people, people wanting to break into the industry, were coerced into this type of conduct in the promise of being made a star, or in the promise of having Sean Combs listen to their tape or even let them read for Sean Combs. You should know that some of this behavior occurred at well-known venues in New York City. Some of this behavior occurred at private residences of people that we all know. Some of this behavior occurred at hotels that we're all familiar with. You should know that more than 55% of the victims filed reports, reported this conduct to either the authorities, that is the police, or to hospitals. We're in the process of collecting with our team assistants, medical records, reports that were made to the authorities. And I've already said that some of the individuals in this group did in fact talk to the FBI. You should know that several of the individuals, and when I say several, I mean many, who did in fact seek medical treatment were drug tested, and drugs were found in their system, weird drugs that you probably never heard of. One in particular that continues to pop up is a drug called xylazine, or trank, which based on our research is known as a horse tranquilizer. Now, there's been a lot of reports that we're filing a class action. This is not a class action. Class action is when one or two people file a case on behalf of a group of people. That's not this. These cases will be individual cases. Each case will live and die on its own merit. These cases will be filed individually, one plaintiff against whoever the defendants were involved in the case. Each case may be filed in one venue like California. Another case may be filed in New York. One case may sue just Sean Combs, but multiple other people. One case may sue a range of people. I would expect most, though, to be filed, as I said, in New York and Los Angeles. Now, I know this. Many of you came here thinking or perhaps believing that I may start naming names. Well, that day will come, but it won't be today. The day will come when we will name names other than Sean Combs, and there's a lot of names.
They finished.
It's a long list already. And of course, I already know who some of these individuals are, but because of the nature of this case, we're going to make damn sure that we're right before we do that. But the names that we're going to name, assuming that our investigators confirm and corroborate what we've been told, are names that will shock you. These are individual cases. There are indeed other perpetrators involved. They will be revealed when that particular individual case is ready to be filed. They already know who they are. And I'm talking here about not just the cowardly but complicit bystanders. That is, those people that we know watched this behavior occur and did nothing. And I'm talking about the people that participated, encouraged it, egged it on. They know who they are. I call them the facilitators of foul play, willing participants in vile conduct. As we identify them, each will be part of this case as defendants. These defendants will not only include individuals, but would also include corporate entities who ultimately profited off of this culture and behavior. I'm looking at banks, pharmaceutical companies, hotels. We know that many of these individuals were paid cash. We know that many of these individuals involved, whether they were the ones being assaulted and abused, or they're witnessing other people being assaulted and abused and then paid and threatened and told to leave. Typically paid 10 grand in cash and told to leave. And then threatened as they were leaving. So in addition to Sean Combs, you should know the defendants in these cases we're going to file will include anyone, of course, who engaged in the assault or exploitation, anyone who participated in such in any way, anyone who encouraged, facilitated this conduct, anyone who was in the room and watched it happen but made no effort to stop it, any venue or venue owner who was aware of what was going on but failed to stop it, any individual or entity who knew about the conduct and benefited from it but did nothing to report it or stop it, and any individual or entity who covered it up or helped cover it up. These people who know who they are should just come forward now. I would imagine, as we speak here, there are a myriad of people who are very nervous. You can't hide skeletons in the closet forever.
Yeah, because it's people pay Puffy to throw parties for him, like LeBron, like Lucius Granger. A lot of these people, Jamie Foxx hosted these parties. They asses, what's the little short? Look, Kevin Hart. These is people who paid Puffy to host these parties, who bragged on TV that, I can't even talk about what go on late at night. You don't got to talk about it because now it's all going to be in the court documents. All of them bragged about these damn wow parties. You know, they bragged about it. And they pay, like I say, Lucius Granger, those elite white dudes used to give Puffy the money, and Puffy would get all the narcotics and bring all of the women and underage and minors, and then they would just enjoy themselves. He know exactly what he's talking about and what he's saying.
I would expect there are many people out there right now who are desperately searching their memories as they delete their texts and data. Now, although these are in fact individual cases, there is a common theme, an MO, if you will. Typically, the victim is lured into a situation where he or she is given a drink. Typically, that drink, reported by these victims.
For y'all who just getting here, he say 60 of the half is half women, half men. So these 60 men, they also raped youngest 9-year-old boy. 9-year-old boy.
Apparently laced with something. Once that drink takes effect, the perpetrators perform all kinds of sexual acts on the victims, many times passing him or her around as other people watch and enjoy the show, and then leave the victim ashamed, confused, injured, and wondering what happened. When the victim reaches out, he or she is told not to say anything. Sometimes there are threats of physical violence or financial repercussions or bodily harm. The claims we intend to bring will include the following: violent sexual assault or rape, sexual abuse, facilitated sex with a controlled substance, false imprisonment, compelling prostitution, sexual misconduct, dissemination of video recordings, false imprisonment, sexual abuse of minors. Given the large volume of cases, and given our other docket obligations, and given the fact that we want to be sure when we file these cases that they are fully vetted, I expect we'll start filing these cases against Sean Combs and other perpetrators within the next 30 days. Now, it's rare, sexual abuse, sexual exploitation, this type of activity is pervasive in our society, and it's rare we get a chance where we can really focus on this as a country and really focus on this about how pervasive this is and what we as collectively can do about it. So I thought I'd take this opportunity before I go into some of the individual cases and talk about some of the individual claims being made and so you'll get a sense of what this 120 people group.
Now remember, he say 3,000 people reached out to him. He say it's just 120 that he working with so far that they vetted. They got witnesses. They got pictures. They got all the evidence that they need. These 120 just not wackos who just trying to get Diddy paper. No. These 120, and this man ain't no joke. These 120, he got all of the receipts.
Looks like individually. I want to bring forward Carrie Paul. She's a national victim advocate who helps victims who have been victimized by this type of conduct. And she has some important words, and I hope you'll pay close attention. I think it's important that you hear from her.
Hello, I'm Carrie Paul with the National Victim Advocate. It's not easy for any survivor to come forward. Our culture doesn't believe survivors. It blames and questions them. Instead of showing support, many choose to enable abusers. The media runs stories asking why it took so long for survivors to come forward instead of asking what barriers exist. We also don't equip law enforcement with the ability to handle sexual assault crimes. Lack of funding translates to lack of training. We have officers in the field that don't know what to say to a rape victim, and also an alarming amount of backlogged, untested rape kits. Prosecutors are focused on what they can prove in a case, and if so, how to do that at time of trial. Advocates and staff are stretched thin with growing caseloads in the criminal justice system. Most people don't know how the criminal justice works in general. There isn't enough staff or resources to adequately explain the entire process to every victim and survivor. Our culture works against victims and survivors every day, and abusers know this. Abusers work themselves into positions of power, building a public image that is trusted and financially large enough to make people look away. Abusers are unfortunately very skilled at power and control, the foundation of abuse. They seek victims who are vulnerable, such as children, their employees, and their intimate partners, all who see a different version than the public does, all who rely on the abuser in some way. And for those that do come forward and aren't believed, face questions like, are you sure it happened that way? Were you drinking? What were you wearing? All of this creates an environment that enables abusers to continue abusing them and future victims. To the survivors that have come forward despite not being believed at some point in time, your courage is like nothing we have seen before. We thank you for coming forward for yourself and all survivors. And lastly, I want all survivors that are watching this to know we believe you and we support you. Thank you.
I want you now to hear from my co-counsel, Andrew Van Arsdale. We've created a sexual abuse hotline, and I want him to visit with us just a few moments about how that works and the kind of volume of calls we've received.
Thank you, Tony. Like Tony said, my name is Andrew Van Arsdale. I'm the managing partner of ABA Law Group. We have offices in California, Montana, and North Carolina. To build off of what you just so well said, it's very hard to come forward. And given what we've experienced the past 10 days is really unprecedented in my career, at least. We represent thousands of survivors of abuse, and never, ever in a 10-day period have we seen over 3,000 people come forward where we've confirmed and decided to investigate and represent 120 people while we're continuing to work through another 100 plus cases to prove them up, to validate what had happened here, and to hold those that are responsible accountable. And so like Tony said, we've set this up. It's 1-800-200-7474. I have a team of people standing by literally. If you know that this happened to someone and you have information about it, please contact us. If this happened to you, come forward. There's attorney-client privilege here. What you tell us is in confidence. Yes, we'll have to go out and build your case, but we will protect you. And the other thing that I want to say is the pattern and practice of this, again, is unprecedented. Over 30 plus years of the same sort of events happening, people thrust into the circle reportedly, and horrible things happening to them as a result. And from talking to these people that have come forward these past 10 days, I can tell you unequivocally that because the federal government did what it needed to do and indicted this man, that they put him in jail and a judge kept him in jail. They tell me directly, this validates my feelings. For so long, I thought it was my fault. What is it about me that put myself in that scenario? What was I wearing at the time? What did I do to be subjected to such horrific treatment at these people that I was trying to trust? Well, we know now it was not your fault. You were victimized by a group of powerful people that operated for 30 plus years, taking advantage of their wealth and the power that they held within the music industry. So again, thank you to every single person that has come forward and contacted our office over the past 10 days. If you or someone you know suffered the same sort of treatment, please contact us at the number behind me and we will help you. Thank you.
I think it speaks to how important this issue is in the United States and frankly, internationally, that we have reputable people here that want to provide kind of information that I think victims need to hear, witnesses need to hear, the public needs to hear. Let me introduce to you now Olivia Rivers from the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault, and let her visit with you a few moments about these types of cases.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Q Olivia Rivers. I am just served my sixth year as the board chair for the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault. I'm also the CEO for the Bridge Over Troubled Waters, which is a local rape crisis center here in the Houston area. So thank you for being here as we address these heinous crimes. Sexual assault is not just a crime of violence against the body. It's an assault on the very essence of human dignity and safety. It shatters lives, it destroys confidence, and all too often, it leaves survivors feeling like they are voiceless, isolated, and vulnerable. The reality for many survivors is that coming forward to report their assault is one of the most difficult and daunting tasks that they will ever have to do. And for some, it may take days, months, or even years to speak up if they ever do. The reasons for this have been mentioned, but include the fear of being disbelieved, being blamed or judged, and of course, retaliation. The trauma of the assault itself being compounded by the trauma of the criminal justice process, where survivors must relive their experience in order to seek justice. And these feelings and fears are further exacerbated when the allegations are against prominent figures in the entertainment industry or Hollywood. Cases involving powerful figures often attract significant media attention, which can deter victims from coming forward due to fear of public exposure or scrutiny. The intense focus on these high-profile cases can make survivors feel that their personal lives are being put under a microscope, causing further emotional distress. These allegations mentioned here today, as reported, reflect deeply troubling claims that deserve thorough investigation, and no individual, regardless of their stature, is above the law or public accountability. Sadly, the statistics paint a very disturbing picture. According to the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men will experience some form of sexual violence in their lifetime. In the US alone, there are approximately 463,000 victims of rape or sexual assault every year, and these numbers barely scratch the surface, as sexual violence remains one of the most underreported crimes. But the numbers that follow tell an even more troubling story. Only about 23% of sexual assaults are reported to law enforcement. Of those, just 5% lead to an arrest, and even fewer, less than 1% of reported cases, ever result in a conviction, which is a devastating gap between the crime and the justice that survivors deserve. I want to briefly focus on our state here in Texas. According to the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault, 6.3 million Texans, men and women, will experience some form of violence. That's every 2 minutes, someone is sexually assaulted, meaning during the course of this press conference, around 60 individuals will forever be changed by this violence. And those are just a few of the victims. Obviously, this is unacceptable. We cannot allow this cycle of silence and inaction to continue. We have to create an environment where survivors feel empowered to come forward, where they are met with empathy and respect and support, not skepticism and blame. We have to ensure that our legal system is equipped to handle these cases with the seriousness they deserve, and that survivors have access to the resources that they need beyond the legal courtroom. We have to address the root causes of this epidemic: prevention, awareness, and fostering environments where respect, consent, and safety are non-negotiable values. Additionally, support for survivors has to be holistic. They have to have access to counseling, medical services, legal advocacy, and of course, community support, regardless of whether they choose to report or not. To every survivor who has come forward, your bravery is an inspiration. To those who are still grappling with their decision, know that you are not alone and that your voice matters. Your story matters. We see you, we believe you, and we are committed to fighting for a future where sexual violence is no longer tolerated and where justice is not the exception, but the standard. Thank you.
I want to visit with you real quickly before we close here about some specific instances without disclosing the victim's name. You probably know that depending on the age of the victim, you can file these cases, these individual cases, under Jane Doe or John Doe. Each state is different in that respect. Typically, there is a balancing test, like the public's right to know the name of the victim and plaintiff versus the confidentiality and the safety of the plaintiff. So we'll have to struggle with that with each one of these cases. Our intention, of course, is to, like we always do, file these cases under a pseudonym until the court tells us otherwise. But let me share with you a few, just kind of give you a sense of the kind of cases and the kind of instances that people are calling and reporting that we are trying to corroborate, vet, and these are the ones that we've already corroborated, vetted, and collected evidence on. One individual who was 22 years at the time she was assaulted said that the typical MO at one of these parties that have been widely discussed in the press was that when you were handed a drink, and now we know that the drink is laced with something, if you refused to drink it, you were kicked out of the party. Now, let that sink in for a minute. I mean, the admission to this party was that you had to drink the chosen drink that was handed to you. And now we know that in most cases, I would say 90% of the cases, these individuals were drugged with some sort of drug. That was kind of the MO. Another instance, this individual who was 9 years old at the time was taken to an audition in New York City with Bad Boy Records. Other boys were there to audition as well. All of them were trying to land a record deal. All of them were minors. This individual was sexually abused, allegedly by Sean Combs and several other people at the studio in the promise to both his parents and to him himself of getting a record deal. Another instance, another minor told allegedly by Sean Combs that he would make him a star, but he needed to visit with him in private about it, away from his parents. Once they were in a private area, allegedly Mr. Combs made the victim perform oral sex upon him. Another incident, an individual 15 years old at the time, flown to New York City to attend a party, was drugged, and then taken into a private room, allegedly in the presence of Mr. Combs, where this female individual, minor, was raped, and then other individuals took turns raping her. Another individual, 26 at the time of the occurrence, was picked up by, allegedly, by Mr. Combs and several other people in a black SUV from the airport, was given one drink in the SUV and then literally woke up the next day not knowing what had happened, but with pain and damage to both her vagina and her anus, where she then went to the hospital. She was missing her underwear and her shoes. Another instance, an individual, this time not a minor, was attended a group dinner, allegedly with Sean Combs in Miami. She wasn't drinking because she was pregnant, but whatever she drank at the table, apparently, at least according to her, was laced with something. She blacked out and she woke up in the same bed, again, allegedly, with Mr. Combs in his mansion in Miami. Her vagina and her anus were torn and sore. And I could go on. I mean, literally, you're sensing a theme here. It's the same theme, and it all involves some sort of drug. One instance, an individual who was 20 years old at the time was asked to attend, just saw her on the street, asked to attend a party in a hotel. She was flattered, went to the party, was given one drink and doesn't remember anything else. Ultimately, was so messed up, went to the hospital where they found cocaine and this horse tranquilizer in her blood system. I want to give you a quote from a very young man who told us over the phone about his experience and all the things that happened to him. He says allegedly at the hands of Sean Diddy Combs and his friends in the effort to try to sign a record deal. This was kind of what he was told he would have to do. His quote is, "Had he not been in power, I feel like I could have been something great. I quit the industry because of what Sean Combs did to me." And that's really what it comes down to. We are pursuing this, asking you to support this effort, to encourage witnesses and victims to come forward and bring your evidence so we can continue to break down this wall of silence and we can continue to have these stories heard. This is the beginning of what I hope to be a national dialogue. This type of sexual assault, sexual abuse, and sexual exploitation should never happen in the United States or anywhere else. This should have never been allowed to go on for so long. This conduct has created a mass of individuals who are injured, scared, and scarred. If you are one of those individuals, we ask you to reach out. If not to us, to someone you trust. If you are someone who witnessed any of these events, we ask you to reach out. Your name can remain confidential. With that, I'll take a few questions, not many, maybe two, but if you have a question, I'll be pleased to try to answer it. Perfect.
How many minors are making up?
We just got done watching a very horrifying and very eye-opening press conference where 120 individuals are filing lawsuits against Diddy. And we now understand that 25 of them were actually minors.
PNSAL, you are now rocking with that dude Pascal.
What's up, guys? I expected a lot, but did not expect this. Okay, you see this title, but there's so much more that was said in this press conference that is absolutely horrifying, absolutely insane. And I'm going to use as many code words as I can, but they basically say that there are 120 people, 60 men and 60 women that are stepping forward, okay, and all kinds of different demographics, as far as races and all that stuff. But at the same time, they are filing individual lawsuits against Diddy. So it's not a class action lawsuit anymore. Now, each and every single individual are filing lawsuits against Diddy. There's been claims that 25 of them were actually minors when these crimes were committed on them. The things that are being explained, and they just gave us just the tip of the iceberg, just a sampling of some of the stories of what these victims endured. And it's absolutely insane and mind-boggling to me. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-boggling. I'm at a loss for words because I am just so shocked about the information that's being said here and the fact that there are so many people that were a part of these parties and just sat there turning a blind eye to the situation is pretty wild to me. In fact, they're even saying that some individuals, huge names in Hollywood, could be going down with Diddy because they were there.
And the music.
They may not have participated. Some may have participated, but some may have just seen the thing go down and just turned away and just let the crime be committed. This is absolutely crazy. It is so wild. Of course, we've been hearing about as young as 9, and then of course it goes up from there. But this is what I was telling you guys about on the live, on the main channel, that some of these individuals were victims of the casting couch. And so if you don't know what that is, it's pretty much like you want to be a star, you need to do X, Y, and Z type of activity to get that role or to get that record deal, so on and so forth. And this is what they're saying. A good portion of these minors were actually saying that they were there to meet with Diddy. They could have been the next Chris Brown or the next Aaliyah or something of that sort. But they were instead attacked in the most vicious way at such a young age. Some of them are now, or they're saying that a lot of them had a specific type of substance in their system as well. And of course, they found that out after being tested. They found this stuff in their blood system. So again, there's so much being said that was said at this press conference that is absolutely mind-blowing and wild. And again, this is not over. There are celebrities, names, etc., people that are in the movie industry, the politics, the music industry, and then some that are going to be facing the music, for lack of a better terms, in regards to what happened with Diddy. Because again, some of these acts, some of these crimes happened in certain celebrities' homes, y'all. I repeat, some of these acts happened inside the homes of big names. Now the question is, who are the names? Who are these people? And are they going to see and go face to face with justice? That is the ongoing question I have right now, because we already got Diddy locked up. And here's the thing though, too, because right now Diddy is trying to go for a third attempt on trying to get bail, which, by the way, after this scathing 120 victims coming out, he ain't going out. They might as well throw that out the window. His law team, his dream team, as he's put together, they should literally go, nah, bruh, nah, we gonna put that on the side. We're gonna throw that in the trash, because 120 other individuals are claiming that you've done some very, very bad things. So we don't really think that the judge is gonna let you out on bail, because the judge will not after all this. Now we got 132 lawsuits pending. Well, actually 133, if that 13th lawsuit actually does get posted, or if it actually does drop. But it'll be 133 lawsuits once everything is all done. I commend, let me just say this too, for all of them that have stepped forward. I commend them for finding the bravery. And of course, the reason why they're brave, one of the reasons that it's given them some incentive to step forward and speak out, is because Diddy is locked up. They would not have done this right now if he was out here free as a bird. His terror reigns supreme for sure. Okay. And his reach is unbelievable. I still can't believe that he is, if it's true, if all this is true, he is the most diabolical of the diabolicals. He's the most diabolical of the diabolicals. Shout out to Tony Busby for doing this, for breaking this information. As they've been saying back in the day, this is draining the swamp. This may drain the swamp. At first, I was like, Hollywood will bounce back from this. At first they'll sit there and say that they're super shocked and all that, and then it'll just go right back to what it was. The evil and the dark underbelly will still be intact. I don't know. This might unearth so many people. This might just flip Hollywood upside down to the point where there's no coming back.
Salute.
It's very interesting, guys. But he did indeed say 120 individuals have stepped forward filing lawsuits, and that's so far. They're getting a flood. Okay? They're getting a tidal wave of phone calls from so many different people, from all walks of life, because Diddy screwed so many people over, because Diddy did so many acts and so many crimes that are so appalling that this is the very reason why this man has been locked up. And again, if you really think about it, none of this would have happened. None of this would have happened if he took that deal from Cassie, her first deal. Ain't that something? Karma's coming back, and karma's biting him right in the butt. Anyway, guys, that's the video. I just wanted to give you guys that breaking news.
This was a very quiet neighborhood in Northern California, and heard her and brought her in the house.
A new accuser claiming Sean Combs sexually assaulted her plans to file a lawsuit as the woman's lawyer claims she's been contacted about a video that shows Sean Combs with someone more high profile than him in a sex tape.
I would say this person is undisputably more famous than Mr. Combs. I don't think anybody would argue if they were to know who it was, that would be a true statement.
I have the new details about the purported video and what the new accuser is claiming. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Ariel Mitchell-Kidd is a lawyer who has sued Sean Combs on behalf of clients in the past, and now she's dropping some new bombshells. And I said bombshells plural. First, Mitchell-Kidd said she's working on a lawsuit for a new client, a woman who has come forward claiming that Sean Diddy Combs sexually assaulted her in California several years ago. Mitchell-Kidd is going to join me here in a bit to detail what her new client told her, and the claim is disturbing. Combs, as you know, faces federal charges of sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy, and he has pleaded not guilty to the charges. He remains in jail being held without bail. The attorneys representing Combs in both his civil and criminal cases say he has never sex trafficked anyone or sexually assaulted anyone. Mark Agnifilo represents Combs in the criminal case.
His resolve is the same. He believes he's innocent. I believe he's innocent. And we're going to fight this case with all of our might until we don't have to fight any longer.
Now, you might recall that Combs is being sued in civil court by about a dozen people claiming they were sex trafficked, sexually assaulted, or abused in some other type of way. I told you Ariel Mitchell-Kidd had bombshells. The next one has to do with her claim that she's been contacted by a person who said that they want to sell a sex tape in a catch and kill type of operation, and that the video shows Sean Combs engaged in sex with a celebrity who's more high profile than he is. News Nation actually broke this news about the purported video. It really got me wondering, who could be more high profile than Sean Combs? He's been a public figure for decades, and he's a billionaire. Ariel Mitchell-Kidd is going to provide more details about that video here shortly. And you may recall that Mitchell-Kidd was representing Adria English, an adult entertainer suing Combs, claiming that he trafficked her at his white parties. There's news on that front as well, so stay tuned. But first, let's get back to the new accuser that Mitchell-Kidd said she's now representing in a claim against Sean Combs. Tell me a little bit, first of all, about this new client that you are representing.
Yes, I had a young lady reach out to me about 2.5 weeks ago in reference to a sexual assault that occurred in 2018 by Mr. Combs and another individual that Mr. Combs directed to assault her. She was able to escape the assault and ran out into the street, and a neighbor heard her. This was a very quiet neighborhood in Northern California, and heard her and brought her in the house, and the police were called and she filed a police report. I've actually been in talks already with the police department that she filed the police report with. I am actively working with them to figure out what did and did not happen and why things were not, I don't want to say taken seriously, but what type of investigation was conducted once my client made that those statements and made that report to the police. And I am in the process now of writing her complaint and getting it filed in California courts.
So you're telling me a woman contacted you and said, I actually called police in 2018 about being sexually assaulted by Sean Combs, but yet we never heard about it?
She did tell me that when she initially made the report, she didn't say who it was. She later did call and amend. She said she felt almost crazy that if she were to say who it was, that they wouldn't have believed her when she initially made the report. And I've had that similarly happened to my client in the Trey Songz case, where Mr. Combs, if you look up my case that's currently still pending in litigation in Florida with Trey Songz, Mr. Combs is listed as a defendant in that case. I also had a case with Chris Brown the following year in 2022, where my client, 2 young ladies, were raped on a boat at Sean Combs's home. And imagine me as an attorney making these statements, advancing these things in court. No one was willing to listen to me in 2021 and 2022. So I can only imagine in 2018 when she did make this phone call to police and was very nervous about saying who it was, that why she wouldn't have said it initially, but she did later on amend her complaint to let the police know it was Mr. Combs.
The allegations involving Sean Combs go to show you how you might need a lawyer at some point in your life. And one of the scariest things that can happen is getting hurt. It's important that you know that if you're ever seriously hurt in an accident, your case could be worth millions. That's where our sponsor and partner, Morgan & Morgan, comes in. The firm has an army of lawyers willing to fight for you and stand up for what you deserve. In the past few months, Morgan & Morgan has won some really big verdicts, like $12 million in Florida, $26 million in Philly, and $6.8 million in New York. All were much higher than the highest insurance company offer. Even if your case isn't worth 7 figures, starting a claim could get you the money that you deserve. And seeing if you have a case can be done in 8 clicks or less on your phone. So give it a try. Start a claim at forthepeople.com/crimefix. So there is physically a police report at a police department in Northern California that says, you know, I am this person, my name, and Sean Combs sexually assaulted me.
Yes, that's to my understanding. I'm waiting to get an official. I called the police department there. I spoke to several individuals in the police department, including the records department, and they're the ones who instructed me of their procedure. I needed, because I'm an attorney representing a client, needed to send them a letter on my letterhead, which is what I did, to request a copy of all of the reports and all of the documentations and whatever investigation I would assume that they did, which is what I'm now in the process of waiting for them to return back to me.
Now, Ariel Mitchell Kidd is not naming the police department where the report was filed, not at this point. She said the assault occurred at the home of a friend of this woman and that her friend knew Sean Combs, who then arrived.
This friend, who she claims is a person who is in the industry and well connected, Mr. Combs called this individual and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" He's like, "I'm chilling at my home." And Ms. Combs said, "I'm going to come over." It's actually very funny because I saw a Russell Brand interview recently, and he was talking about now that he's become friends with Mr. Combs, it's like now if he asks me to walk his dog or feed his fish, it's like he's very imposing. You can't tell him no. And it was really jarring for me to hear this Russell Brand interview after hearing the story that my client told me.
Now, I've told you in prior Crime Fix episodes about Sean Combs' former chief of staff, Christina Coram, who was by his side beginning in 2013. Record producer Rodney Little Rod Jones called Coram Sean Combs' Ghislaine Maxwell. Sean Combs has denied the allegations that he has sex trafficked anyone. Mitchell Kidd says her new client brought up Christina Coram's name in their conversations.
She actually also identified Christina Coram, who Mr. Combs has called KK, and has talked about her in several interviews. And when he received the BET Award, where he talked about, thanks, shout out to Cassie for holding me in the dark times, he actually started off with KK. And she said, "I never knew who that lady was. She was with him that night. It wasn't until recently, when the pictures have been coming across all over the internet of her, that she said, this is the lady who was there that night. It was the lady who I described to the police, who I did not identify or have a name, but that the Christina Coram lady was the one who had started to make jokes about sex trafficking my client, that she would be very good on the open market kind of thing." She said that kind of made her feel uncomfortable. And then she got a drink and then started to feel woozy. And then Mr. Combs first sexually assaulted her with an inanimate object, and then directed another gentleman who was there to then penetrate her while he was in the corner pleasuring himself, while Mr. Combs was in the corner pleasuring himself.
So this almost sounds like what's been alleged in these freak off situations.
Absolutely. It was, and I've talked to several other individuals who I have not taken on as clients. I do not take on everyone who contacts me as a client. There's a level of due diligence that I do conduct and a level of evidence that I need to see in order to make a good faith basis to file a complaint. I do have obligations as an attorney and the bar ethically, and I also have my own moral obligations. So when we come and talk about things of this nature, I always have to use some type of corroborating evidence, either from individuals as witnesses, pictures, something to corroborate that this actually occurred. So I've had other individuals call me and tell me very similar stories, but unfortunately those individuals were not American citizens. They were foreign nationals who were trafficked into Miami by Mr. Combs. But because I could not verify their story, I was unable to take them on as clients.
So she says Christina Coram was there, present. This was Sean Combs' chief of staff until somewhat recently. But this is somebody who knows everything about what's going on with Sean Combs. Do you plan on naming her in the suit?
Absolutely. She will be named as a defendant in this lawsuit. I'm coming after just like Mr. Combs was listed as a defendant in the Trey Songz lawsuit. Anybody who had something to do with it, I'm not going to shy away from coming after them. I think there should be other people indicted with Mr. Combs, but as the government goes, they just want the big fish. But the problem is the big fish can't be the big fish without the little fish helping them accomplish their nefarious goals.
So Ariel Mitchell Kidd says Sean Combs and Christina Coram will be named in this lawsuit. Coram's social media has gone dark over the last 6 months, and she's nearly impossible to find. Now to the video that Mitchell Kidd says she's seen screen grabs of, showing Combs and a person more high profile than Combs engaged in sex. Mitchell Kidd told me how she became aware of the video.
So about a month ago, I got contacted by an individual purporting to have some very sensitive information. And they also purported to me to have they're in possession of 3 tapes, not just 1 tape with Mr. Combs, but they were only interested in pursuing this 1 tape and were looking for legal representation, mainly, like you just said, because they had saw me being actively involved in civil lawsuits against Mr. Combs, that I would be somebody they would interested in to facilitate doing something with the tapes. Initially, I wasn't sure, and they weren't exactly clear on whether or not it was going to be like a catch and kill or facilitating the sale to another third party. I actually called one of my business partners and mentors and had been telling him about this pretty much since the onset of it. They invited me, the individuals who have the video invited me to California, to LA, to come and view the tapes in person. I was hesitant to do so only because once I know something, I'm obligated, based on being an officer of the court, to tell the court what I saw and what I knew. They offered to send me screenshots through text messages, which I declined. And I ended up saying, well, let's FaceTime and then you can show me. This way I have a sense of no evidence or plausible deniability in terms of things that I've actually received or actually seen with my own 2 eyes. And in those couple of stills that they showed me was Mr. Combs and another very shocking, I would imagine, very jarring for a lot of people, individuals in a very pornographic nature.
So Ariel, I have to push you a little bit on this. You've said it's somebody more high profile, and you're saying individuals, plural, more high profile than Sean Combs. I mean, are we talking more high profile in Hollywood? Are we talking a politician? I mean, what are we talking about here?
No, it's someone in the entertainment industry, and I would say this person is undisputably more famous than Mr. Combs. I don't think anybody would argue if they were to know who it was, that would be a true statement.
So the person in the video who's more high profile than Sean Combs, is this a man or a woman?
I'm not going to say.
Now, I don't want to get too graphic, but I asked Mitchell Kidd about what else she could see in the video and who. And this is what prosecutors would call a freak off tape.
I can't see other people in the video. I can't determine. I actually called one of my other clients. When I got this call Thursday, they finally Thursday night called me and came out with it and said, we're ready to move forward with selling this tape. Can you broker the deal? We'll give you X percentage to sell this tape to the other individual in the tape. And I was like, let me, I don't know. I kind of really pulled back a lot and said, well, let me make some phone calls and I'll let you know. So one of the phone calls was to another client that I have who I know to have been a friend of the individual who they wanted to sell the tape to and was very close to that individual around the time the tape would have been made. So I wanted to get his perspective on what he felt, my client, how he felt about just everything in general. Would this be something that the other person would be interested in purchasing? Would this, how should I feel about participating in this? I'm talking to my client now to see if he's willing to talk about that conversation that we had. But I also feel like the minute he does that, everybody will automatically know who it is.
Have you ever been contacted about something like that before and asked to broker a deal?
Absolutely. I do this behind the scenes for several A-list celebrities, people who I would never tell you about or anybody else about because I'm paid very well to do this for them and to catch and kill a lot of things on their behalf, things that either they may have gotten themselves into or somebody else got them into. So this is not something I'm a novice on. I've done it many a times before. However, this is a lot more high profile now that the feds are involved and the other individual. I'm actually more concerned for the other individual in the tape than I am Mr. Combs.
Now, you might be asking yourself, why is Ariel Mitchell Kidd making this public? The information about the videos with Sean Combs and somebody else.
And part of the reason why I made this statement Friday was, how do I say, I'm very concerned about the other person in the video. I was concerned that the individuals who contacted me to sell the video, if they were to do something, I didn't want anybody to say I had knowledge of something and I didn't say anything, one. And two, if something were to happen to me because of this knowledge that I had, I wanted it to be known that like, look at these people, because it'd probably be them who would have done something to me. Not that I'm per se fearful, but anything, it's been a crazy tipsy-topsy world, especially when we're talking about Mr. Combs.
Have you been threatened at all since you've become involved with, especially with Adria English, obviously, but have you received any threats?
I was threatened by Mr. Combs previously. So in my work with the Trey Songz case, I was told by several individuals, including a celebrity chef and some other people who were close to him, that if I didn't cease my persistence in that lawsuit and then the situation with Chris Brown, that my life was in danger.
Wow. Did you ever report that to law enforcement?
I did not. I didn't want to include the other people. I just bought more guns and then I moved out of the state.
I reached out to Sean Combs' reps for comment on this new accuser, the video, and Mitchell Kidd's claims that Combs had previously threatened her when she sued him as part of the Trey Songz lawsuit. At the time of this recording, I have not received a response. Songz has denied the claims in that suit. Now back to English, that adult entertainer who's suing Sean Combs, accusing him of sex trafficking her at his white parties from 2004 to 2009. Combs has denied he has sex trafficked anyone. I want to talk just briefly about Adria English, somebody that you filed suit on behalf of in the last many months. It was in July. You're no longer representing her.
Unfortunately, me and Miss English had an issue with a violation, a breach of our contract. So I have had to stop my representation. Once we get to a point where I have a client breaching a contract, I have to end the representation.
So there you have it. And we'll check back in on this new accuser when the suit is filed. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back.
Detention Center, pending trial on racketeering and sex trafficking charges, we're examining a key issue in this case, the allegation that Combs was engaging in illegal freak-off sessions even this year. We bring on trial attorney Jennifer Elkady to discuss this major claim and whether Combs could in fact be released. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. There's something about Sean Combs' current case that we need to explore a little bit more, especially considering he is trying to fight to get bail once again. Now, as we know, Sean Diddy Combs is currently locked up at the Metropolitan Detention Center, the MDC, out in Brooklyn, New York. This as he awaits trial on federal charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. That essentially he agreed to form and continue a criminal enterprise that was engaged in a campaign of illegal activity, from kidnapping to forced labor to arson to sex trafficking, as well as the abuse of women for years. More specifically, that he would drug and force people to partake in so-called freak-offs, these elaborate sexual performances with commercial sex workers that were brought in for these events. Now, we did a full-depth analysis already of freak-offs in a prior episode of Sidebar. I encourage everybody to check it out if you want to learn a little bit more. But here is the issue I want to focus on. So prosecutors have alleged that their case dates back from 2008. The question, though, is how long this alleged criminal activity goes until. That is the question, because here's the thing to remember. Combs was first sued by Cassandra Ventura in November of 2023 for sexual assault, battery, sex trafficking. This began the ball rolling with the filing of many more lawsuits to come. A lot more alleged victims came out and sued Sean Combs. Then in March of 2024, federal agents raided Combs' properties in Los Angeles and Miami. And then he was arrested pursuant to a grand jury indictment on September 16th. That timeline is very, very important. Why? Well, prosecutors from the Southern District of New York, they submitted a letter to the court. This was after Combs was arrested, and this was after Combs was denied bail by a previous judge, and then he tried to appeal that to a district court judge. Well, in their letter, they wrote as follows, quote, both at argument yesterday and in the press, the defendant has emphasized his supposed cooperation with the government, including his willingness to surrender, meaning how he came to New York to ultimately surrender to the charges. The court should take that argument for what it truly is, attorney-crafted theater designed to convince this court that the defendant can be trusted and is not a risk of flight. Make no mistake, the defendant's recent behavior shows that he cannot be trusted or controlled, particularly now that he is facing serious charges that carry significant penalties. As Judge Tarnofsky observed, and this was the judge who originally denied bail, your lawyer asked me to trust you and to trust him, and I don't know that I think you can trust yourself, and I don't believe that counsel has the ability to control you. And then the government says in their letter, quote, indeed, since at least in or about January 2024, when the defendant was unquestionably aware of the criminal investigation, the evidence shows that he is engaged in multiple freak-offs, some involving the interstate transportation of individuals to participate, has continued to use narcotics, and has contacted multiple witnesses. Some of this conduct has even taken place since the defendant arrived in New York City, allegedly to sit it out and wait to be arrested. The defendant's conduct is demonstrably not cooperative and indeed highlights his inability to abide by the law or counsel's directives. And we know that District Court Judge Andrew L. Carter ultimately agreed with prosecutors, denied Combs bail for a second time, and also highlighting how prosecutors alleged that Combs had improperly reached out to witnesses and purported victims to silence them from cooperating with authorities. That's a big no-no. Now, the idea here, and again, this is what I want to focus on, that these freak-offs were happening despite all the lawsuits, despite the fact that he had to seemingly know investigators were looking into him, that's a big issue. That's a big allegation. We're not talking about conduct just from the early 2000s, but essentially what prosecutors are alleging today, this year. The freak-offs allegedly happening this late, that's what I want to talk about. How could that factor into his criminal case? Actually, here's a thought. Could Combs use that as a defense? I'm going to explain what I mean in a minute. And also, talking big picture, talking about what's happening right now, I wonder how much that allegation will come into play as Combs tries once again to get pretrial release, because Combs' legal team filed a notice of appeal yesterday. They seem to be taking this bail fight to the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. They want to overturn Judge Carter's decision. Will it work? Will he get pretrial release? Will he be let out on bail? And again, will this allegation of freak-offs happening this year come into play? You know what's difficult? You know what's tough? Reading through legal briefs and filings to prepare for sidebar. It's like I'm back in law school. Being told I look like Dennis Reynolds every single time I check the comments. That wears on you. At this point, I think people think he hosts the show. Again, it's tough. But you know what's not difficult? Starting a claim with Morgan & Morgan. How about that transition, by the way? Well, Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm, they make the process as easy as possible for their clients, because from starting your claim to uploading documents to talking to your legal team, it can all be done from your smart time. So if this allegation is true, that Combs was engaging in freak-off sessions this late in the game, what does that tell you?
It tells me a couple of things. Looking at the legal implications, I think you said it exactly right. I mean, he had consistently obstruction of justice. There were violations of court orders, and he continued racketeering and trafficking. It just does not look good for him. And on an appellate level, looking at that, it wouldn't be a argument as to whether or not the court's order for denying of bail was a de novo, meaning that it was a question of law. It would be looking at it as a potential abuse of discretion. And I think the lower court is absolutely looking at Combs and his potential risk to society. And like you mentioned with the timeline, I mean, continuing to proceed in these freak-offs, even after the raids, is indicative of his nature to have that obstruction of justice, violating those court's orders.
Well,
and
let's be
continuing.
clear about the timeline there. Let's be clear about the timeline. And a couple of things that you mentioned, right? You mentioned that how this higher court would review this lower court's decision, really only saying, did the lower court make a mistake? Was it so egregious to deny bail? And when you have accusations like this, and you talk about the weight of the evidence, and you talk about the gravity of these alleged crimes, I think it's going to be a long shot to say that this judge made a mistake by not granting bail. I'll put that to the side for a second, but the timeline's important. So they said January 2024. Not clear if he was having freak-offs in New York. But putting that to the side, if let's say the last time he did it was January 2024, that was before the raids, right? But that was after the lawsuits. Is it fair to say that he would have known he was under investigation? Because I look through one of the things that was presented was the defense, when they were filing their letter with the court to seek bail, they included their communication with the prosecutors from the Southern District of New York. As far as I could see, it dated back to April, so after the raids. I didn't see any communication from early 2024, from January. So would it be fair for prosecutors to say Combs was engaging in freak-offs? He should have known he was under investigation, would have been charged. This was before the raids.
Absolutely, because that, like you mentioned, that timeline is important, and it goes also to a preservation of evidence and almost putting you on notice as to that you are going to be investigated. And when you're a public figure like that too, you've got so many people that are informing you as to what it is that this could potentially lead for you in the future, right? It could lead to a legal investigation. So to say that he did not know is potentially a long shot, but definitely that he should have known that this could have been a bigger investigation, I think is completely reasonable.
In other words, he should have known by the lawsuits that he was probably being investigated by federal authorities. I mean, is that fair? Because the other way of looking at it is, and let me ask you a question about this. Two questions I have about this. First of all, how often do we see that? How often do we see civil lawsuits turn into a federal investigation? Now, there were allegations of sex trafficking. There were allegations of racketeering. He might have said, like if he really did it, the statute of limitations ran on kind of these assault claims, maybe these rape claims. But if you're thinking about, look what happened, Ghislaine Maxwell, you're looking at R. Kelly. Should he have known that based on the lawsuits, the feds were looking at them?
So I think you bring up a really good point, right? And the fact of the matter is, in these civil litigations, especially when you are a public figure, there are numerous allegations that come out about public figures specifically, and sometimes they're brushed off, other times they're investigated further. And I think with this situation, what you mentioned too is that it was a federal claim, right? I mean, these are egregious allegations of human trafficking and racketeering. So those are in and of itself very, very egregious crimes to which they should have been taken seriously. And I think that is something to be said, whether or not they were to him. So I think that's like the main issue here as to the level of crime that was brought.
I'll flip it for you. I think that there's a chance he could use this as a defense. It might be a long shot defense, but bear with me here. Couldn't he say, I never thought these freak-offs were illegal? Yeah, Cassandra Ventura mentioned them. Cassandra Ventura sued me. Others mentioned them, but I've always maintained that they are consensual sex parties. If this really was a crime and I just got called out on it on a national, international stage by Cassandra Ventura, secret's out, why on earth would I keep doing it? So again, I go back to this issue of if he's going to defend himself throughout this case and say everything was consensual. Freak-offs in of themselves, if there's no drugs, there's no force, there's no coercion, there's no prostitution, wild sex parties are legal, right? Couldn't he make the argument, yeah, I did it in January 2024 because I didn't think it was illegal?
He absolutely could make that argument for sure. And I think you mentioned too that if there was no evidence of coercion, force, drug use, impaired consent, that's definitely a defense. And I think that's going to be his defense, is that these were consensual parties. Now, again, if it was that these are adults, that's a defense. If these individuals were minors, then it's a different story. Minors, there's numerous laws that protect minors tremendously. So you don't have to have any type of force, fraud, or coercion. The law protects
and to be
minors.
clear, he's not charged with that. They don't mention anything about minors or underage people at all.
Correct. And so I like you mentioned, I do think that this is going to be a giant defense of his, is that these were consensual. I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. There's no evidence of force, fraud, or coercion at whatever it may be. And there was no evidence of drug use, whatever. So it's definitely going to be a huge defense of his.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to work because the allegations are a freak off wouldn't be a freak off if there wasn't criminal activity afoot. I think that was what the prosecution would say. And there's a difference. There's a difference between a wild party and there's a difference between what the prosecution is focusing so much on, the freak offs, these illegal sexual encounters. I did think it was interesting, the fact that the government alleged this in their letter. And to be clear, there's a lot we don't know about the prosecution's case. We don't know exactly who they've spoken to, who cooperating witnesses are, what the evidence exactly shows. Their letters provide a little bit more information than the actual indictment. But the fact that the government alleged this, that he was having freak-offs this late in the game, what does that tell you in terms of the evidence they have, or maybe who they've spoken to? Again, this is after some of the lawsuits had already been filed. My thought is, who turned on Combs?
It's so funny. I actually had that in my notes at one point too, is that I was thinking about there had to have been more witnesses that came out, because at this point too, what you have to think about is that the investigation is continuing. So, and in a federal case like this, it might be that there's whistleblowers. It could be that they're trying to protect themselves at this point, because they could potentially be corroborating, or they could have been instigating these freak offs as well. So to protect themselves, they're probably coming out right now to ensure their safety and security with respect to this lawsuit. So I do think that there were witnesses that have been coming out, more so like whistleblowers at this point too, where it's that they were in his inner circle and they're just trying to protect themselves at this point too.
By the way, if the government, let me phrase this, if law enforcement was aware that, you take the allegations the worst they are, that a illicit freak off was about to happen. So if they were investigating him and they were to get word that a freak off was about to happen sometime between, I don't know, January 2024 and when he was arrested, would law enforcement let it go on in order to get more evidence, or would they step in and say a crime's about to be committed, we got to jump in? Because it seems to me they found out about this after the fact.
Yeah, I'm putting it into perspective of my cases that I deal with on a day-to-day basis as to, one of the main ways that law enforcement investigates a lot of their claims is through tips. And so, but a tip is a tip. At the end of the day, they have to do their due diligence, and they can't just go and arrest anybody based off of a tip. So I do think that law enforcement was probably investigating it, but they just didn't have enough evidence at that point to go ahead and do anything. But I don't think that they just threw their hands up and said, it's probably nothing.
So talk to me about how you think that this allegation is going to factor into his chances of getting bail. Do you think it's going to come up? Do you think that his chances of getting bail, I know, are better at going to an appellate court? You mentioned that the kind of the standard that they have to review, but let's not forget what he was offering. He was offering, as part of pretrial release, home confinement, $50 million secured by a Miami property. He gives up his phone privileges, his internet privileges. Only limited people can visit his home. He has a private security firm monitoring the house. Visitor logs would be provided to the court. Again, some would say an attractive bail package, but in light of these allegations that he was allegedly still continuing to break the law and contacting witnesses and victims, what do you think the shot is that his appeal is successful?
I still don't think his appeal is going to be successful. And again, I think it really is just based off of an appellate's review is really looking for either de novo, which is a question of law, abuse of discretion, did the trial court make a reasonable decision, and clearly erroneous, which would be finding of facts made by the trial court that were potentially clearly wrong. And based off of that, it's not de novo. This is not a question of law. Look, I really do think it's going to be an abuse of discretion or clearly erroneous. And I think that the trial court looked at everything and saw that he was I don't want to say the word menace, but basically to society, he might have been considered a menace. And as a public figure, you have more heightened responsibility. So I don't think there was an abuse of discretion by the trial court. I think that they saw that he was ignoring court orders. And I think that he just continuing to have these freak offs with such egregious claims was reasonable for them to assume that he could be a danger to society.
Yeah, in other words, it's understandable why the judge made that decision. Both of those judges. I mean, my understanding is under law, given the charges, given the allegations, there is a presumption of pretrial detention. This would be different if you had, I don't know, like a church lady with no criminal background that stole a candy bar and you lock her up for until trial. You could say, oh, the judge, what's the judge doing here? This makes sense. I'm curious to see if anything will change, if his circumstances will change, that he can make us another argument for pretrial release. But Jenny, it seems to me, by all accounts, he could theoretically still be locked up at the Metropolitan Detention Center for a year, 2 years, until trial actually begins.
Yeah, and something that I practice solely in federal court, and something that does unfortunately happen with federal court is that the cases do take anywhere from 3 to 5 years from the time of filing. So, I mean, it very well could be that this is going to be a long case. State court claims move pretty quick, but federal cases do take quite some time. I mean, it's also too, I mean, you have to think it's a federal issue. You know, you want to make sure that the judges are getting it right. So I do think that it's going to take some time. And look, we also don't know, appellate courts also have their own discretion, right? We don't know what an appellate court is going to do. They very well could just be like, nah, you know what? Yeah, put him on bail. It's fine. We really don't know what an appellate court can do. But just based off of the facts that we know right now, I do think that it's a long shot for him to get bail.
They might say the prosecution hasn't shown enough to prove this, to show the freak-offs happened in 2024. They was contacting witnesses. It'll be interesting. Before I let you go, as somebody who specializes in the human trafficking field, this is a unique case, but a similar case. So the idea here that he sex trafficked, right now, victim one, at least one person through force, fraud, or coercion, that his alleged criminal enterprise was engaged in sex trafficking on a larger scale. Again, you know, using these methods for commercial sex acts, also bringing people in for purposes of prostitution. What is your take on how strong a case like this is, how unique a case like this is from a human trafficking perspective?
So, it really is going to depend. RICO is a federal claim, and it is a very, very difficult and high standard to prove. I will say that specifically with respect to corporations. But it's because we don't have all the evidence and all the known facts right now. And it is unfortunate that you can't have, obviously, in federal proceedings, more information like this. But I do think, given the totality of the circumstances and as more evidence comes out, I think it's a strong case. I do see that there are vivid signs of human trafficking with respect to force, fraud, and coercion. And it is going to depend on the evidence and witnesses. Those are going to be the two key pieces. I do think back testimony is going to be important. And I think expert testimony is also going to be important.
All right, we will see. Jennifer Elkady, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jesse.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe.
Thank you. We are following breaking news right now related to music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. Major new allegations today of sexual assault and exploitation by Combs. For the first time, we are hearing about victims who say they were minors when they were allegedly assaulted by the music star. The youngest allegedly just 9 years old. The allegations were revealed today by attorneys representing more than 100 alleged victims who are preparing to sue. So let's bring in NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Malas right now. So Chloe, we know there is currently a press conference conference underway. We do have live picture of that. Can you just walk us through these new allegations and tell us if we've heard from Combs yet?
So the individual that you see on the screen right now, that is an attorney based out of Houston, Texas, and his name is Tony Busby. He's been a part of some very well-known litigation over the years involving a BP oil spill, even involving the Astroworld Music Festival crisis where some individuals were killed during a stampede. So he has made headlines before, but this is pretty shocking. So he is claiming right now at this press conference that he has had over 3,000 individuals reach out to his law firm in Houston, Texas, that he and his team have been vetting these claims, that now they are representing over 120 accusers, and that over the next 30 days, they will begin to file different civil suits, that this is not a class action lawsuit, that they are going to continue to vet these allegations, but right now they feel strong about these. So he also said today that it's not just Combs that will be named as a defendant, that there will be other high profile individuals, some household names. He says, quote, many powerful people, there are many dirty secrets. He says that his team has collected pictures, video, and that the allegations include violent sexual assault or rape, facilitated sex with a controlled substance, dissemination of video recordings, and sexual abuse of minors. So this was something else that they talked about, that there are 25 accusers who were allegedly minors at the time that these allegations took place, starting in 1991, span all the way up over 2 decades. He also talks about where these individuals are from. He said that they hail from more than 25 states, New York, California, Florida. We know that Diddy had a residence in Miami, Georgia. We've reached out to Sean Combs' legal team for comment. They have not yet responded. Combs is currently being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn while he is awaiting trial on the New York indictment, where he is charged with racketeering, sex trafficking, and prostitution charges. Now, I also just want to point out that they also claim that 62% of these individuals are identifying as an African American, and that they are evenly split between female accusers and male accusers, and Clay. So this is very interesting. And he said that look, I know that everybody expected me today or wanted me to name other high profile individuals. He says, I'm not going to do that today, but it will come at some point. And he says that these names will shock you.
Wow. I mean, shocking details to say the very least. And I'm sure just the start of what's to come. Chloe Malas.
Sean Diddy Combs continues to make headlines in the wake of his sex trafficking arrest 2 weeks ago. Since his arrest in New York City, more accusers have come forward alleging the Bad Boy founder sexually assaulted them. But a law firm in Texas says they have more alleged victims in the triple-digit numbers. Houston-based firm, the Busby Law Firm, claims more than 100 people have come forward with allegations they were sexually assaulted by Diddy and his associates. Attorney Tony Busby of Busby Law Firm made the claim last week on his firm's Instagram page. According to Busby, the acts allegedly took place at hotels, private homes, and at Diddy's freak-off parties. The freak-offs have been at the center of the government's case against the mogul. According to Diddy's federal indictment, the sex acts known as freak-offs went on for hours and even days, and Diddy allegedly produced, directed, and recorded the encounters for his own pleasure. The freak-offs allegedly involved multiple sex workers and often involved drugs, including ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which, according to prosecutors, Diddy distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. According to the indictment, the freak-offs often occurred in hotels, and Diddy and members of his staff facilitated the freak-offs by booking the hotel rooms and stocking them with supplies, including drugs, baby oil, lubricant, extra linens, and lighting. According to the indictment, the Bad Boy founder allegedly threatened victims' careers and livelihoods if they resisted participating in the freak-offs. After federal agents raided his homes in March, they recovered items including baby oil, lubricant, AR-15s with defaced serial numbers, and drugs. According to court documents, members of Diddy's entourage often carried guns, and the producer allegedly used a firearm to intimidate and threaten others, including victims and witnesses to his abuse. According to attorney Tony Busby, the individuals they are representing, which include men and women, many were minors when the abuse occurred. In his statement, Busby wrote, "Some of these brave individuals reported the incidents to police, others did not. While at this time we don't know the full extent of the claims," Busby went on to write, "each individual story is gut-wrenching and heartbreaking." He wrote, "The violations against this group of individuals are mind-boggling and can only be described as debauchery and depravity exacted by powerful people against minors and the weak." Initially, when Busby first came forward with the sexual assault claims against Diddy and his associates, he said his firm was representing more than 50 people, but that number has since doubled when his law firm encouraged other victims to come forward. At this time, Busby has yet to file a formal lawsuit on behalf of more than the 100 alleged victims. The embattled producer, even though locked up, still faces nearly a dozen lawsuits already, most recently from another woman in Harris County who accused Diddy and his bodyguard of drugging, raping her, and recording the assault in 2001 when she was 25 years old. Talia Graves claimed she was dating an employee of Diddy's at the time, and he leveraged that relationship to isolate her. She said she learned Diddy recorded the crime and shared it to others to degrade and humiliate her. That lawsuit came a week after Diddy was indicted on charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Since his arrest, the hip-hop producer has denied any and all wrongdoing and has pleaded not guilty to the crimes. But 2 federal judges have since denied his bail, and he'll remain in federal detention until his trial. This is a great time to bring on Texas-based criminal defense attorney Bridget Williams. Bridget, always so great to see you. Now, a law firm in Houston says more than 100 people have come forward to them with allegations of sexual assault against Diddy and his associates. What's your reaction, especially given that huge number?
It is such a huge number of women and people who are stating that they were sexually assaulted. So it's a massive amount of people. My first thoughts are whenever a federal crime is brought against a person, it's not because the federal government has a minute amount of information. They have an overwhelming amount of information to present against this person. There's probably been years of investigatory work that has gone into place in order to bring these indictment charges. An indictment brings just knowledge to the person. The purpose of an indictment is to notify the person of what they are being charged. So they don't have to lay out all the evidence in an indictment. The sole purpose is just to notify of what they are being charged with. So with that being said, as time progresses, I just expect more and more evidence to come to the surface. So we've seen some things already, but I can only imagine what else will be coming to the surface as this progresses.
And we do just want to kind of clarify that the alleged victims that have come forward are not a part of the federal indictment. Now, the firm also claims that many of the alleged victims were minors when the assault occurred. What are your thoughts on that?
It's definitely heartbreaking to hear that individuals who were minors, they had this happen to them. It's heartbreaking to have any person, an adult or a minor, to state that this is what happened to them on a sexual assault matter. When we think of it from a legal standpoint, though, we have the statute of limitations here in Texas for sexual assault varies from a criminal offense and from a civil standpoint. So on a criminal side, an individual who states that they've been sexually assaulted as a minor, they do not have a statute of limitations to bring forth a criminal case. So at any time, they can bring forth a criminal case of sexual assault. However, on the civil side, when we're talking about a civil case, then if the offense happened when they were a minor, then they have 30 years to bring forth a civil suit against the person who they are saying that caused this sexual assault case.
And there's always this debate of why victims don't come forward when things happen to them. But looking back on these lawsuits that Diddy is facing, there seems to be this pattern of intimidation from Diddy. Do you think that attributed to them being the alleged victims in this case, not wanting to come forward before his arrest last week or 2 weeks ago?
Absolutely. I think that that is always a key factor when we talk about alleged victims in sexual assault cases. There's always a matter of they feel intimidated or they don't feel safe or they don't feel enough confidence to face their accusers. Because those individuals in a criminal matter, they may be asked to testify in a trial setting. They may be asked to give a statement that will go into evidence and discovery that goes to the defense counsel, and the defendant may be able to read those statements, right? So they have to get to a point where they feel confident enough and safe enough to come forward to bring their case. And that's one of the reasons why the statute of limitations on the civil case is for such a long time, and why there is no statute of limitations for sexual assault against a child.
And why do you think that Busby law firm hasn't filed a lawsuit yet with the claims?
Right now, Diddy is facing the federal case in New York. Federal cases are always going to have precedent over any type of state law matters, especially when they're of this magnitude, right? So Diddy's facing 3 federal charges at this time period, one of them being racketeering. Racketeering is a case that is a very hard charge to prove. And so there's a lot of underlying crimes that will go into proving the racketeering case on the federal level. If the federal prosecutors can move forward with that case and they are successful there, it's going to be much easier for the state prosecutors to move forward on their criminal cases, because they may be able to insert some of that information into their trial setting if they have it. I would say that because they have that authority or a precedent to be able to move forward first there, I would be waiting if I was Busby as well, moving forward on the civil case and moving forward with trying to do criminal case as well.
And I'm interested to know, as far as the racketeering conspiracy and that being kind of harder to prove, why do you think that is? Because to me, in my mind, I'm always like, well, they can just like follow the money essentially. But what are your thoughts on why racketeering conspiracy might be a little harder to prove in this case?
Racketeering is always going to be a hard case to prove, and that's because it is the elements for racketeering is pretty much an organized crime involving schemes to produce or elicit illegal financial gain for that organization. So there have to be a series of other crimes, of other specific examples of organized crime in order to prove the racketeering. And so that is going to be several instances that have to be proved, not just one time. It has to be multiple times. Multiple crimes have to be proven. So that could be bribery, arson, sexual assault. Several different crimes have to be proven in order to move forward in a RICO or a racketeering case.
And it's interesting too, because Diddy has denied all wrongdoing on previous lawsuits when it comes to his alleged sexual misconduct and denied all wrongdoing in its federal case. But with more than 100 people now coming forward to allege sexual assault, not just by Diddy, but his associates as well too, how do you expect Diddy's attorneys to react to all of this?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because, again, whenever we talk about these individuals coming forward, one person, we may say, okay, well, we have a case where it's when your word against the other person's word. But there's so much overwhelming evidence in this particular case. Sometimes it's the defense's job to mitigate or reduce the damages or reduce the sentencing or prison time as much as possible. Sometimes that can be a strategy. In this particular case, Diddy is, like you stated, denying all wrongdoing at all. So I'm just going to be looking for what's going to be presented in the trial setting. Because right now we have some evidence, but we just don't know what will all be presented in the trial, and what evidence that Diddy's defense counsel has in order to produce also. So that'll be very pertinent in order when he talks about his defense strategy.
And speaking of defense strategy, what do you think Diddy's defense attorneys will be using kind of going forward with this trial? And I'm saying that in the sense of what type of strategy do you think they'll be using beyond that these freak offs that had happened, in hotel rooms, possibly at his mansions, were all consensual acts. What other type of kind of defense do you think they'll use beyond this was just consensual?
That's a tough one, especially when we talk about the offenses that occur with minors, because minors cannot give consent, and so that's going to be a very tough defense whenever we are discussing the issues that went on with minors. So that one's going to be a tough one. But with the adults, individuals who are over the age of 18 years old, I think that's going to be the main defense strategy is consent. You provided consent, you were there, you were of your own free will to be there. And so again, that will be the evidence that will be coming out in the trial setting. We'll just have to see exactly what they'll be putting forward. We won't know what their strategy that they can be using. We only have the evidence that the prosecutor has brought forward at this time. So I think as that continues to develop, we may see more and more things, and then we can say, okay, well, this is how they will calculate a defense strategy once we are privy to more information.
And what are your thoughts about the prosecution in their case, kind of going about this? Can they use any of the claims against Diddy, including these lawsuits and possibly these more than 100 alleged victims? Can they use any of that going forward in their case?
They can try to, right? So we have different evidence parameters that they are not allowed to bring in any what we call prior bad acts, but that would be up to defense counsel to make objections to. A good prosecutor is going to try to insert that information into any trial. However, it's the defense's job to bring up that prior bad acts objection. Generally, they'll do that prior to the trial setting and outside the view of the jury, and it'll just be in front of the court. And the judge will make a ruling on if that will be acceptable to bring into evidence, to bring into a trial, and if it will be tainting to a jury, if it is more damaging or not to the jury to hear that evidence. So that's completely up to a judge to decide.
And one thing that always kind of sticks out to me in this particular case is that, the federal government alleges that Diddy didn't act alone. He kind of was the head of his associates who kind of acted on his behalf. But now with some of these lawsuits that are coming out, there are other people in Diddy's camp that have been kind of named in these lawsuits as far as either being perpetrators or knowing about Diddy's alleged crimes. What are your thoughts on just the whole aspect of his associates also being kind of involved in this? And I'm not talking about like celebrities who have attended his parties or anything like that, but people in Diddy's camp who have also kind of been accused of also kind of participating in these illegal acts.
Those individuals who are being accused of these illegal actions, I feel like they will go towards the racketeering case. That is just another way to build that there was an organized crime, a scheme that was going on this entire time in order to create additional illegal financial gain for the organized crime. So all of those individuals being named, those names will come out what they did, what Diddy's involvement was with them and what they did, and their involvement in Diddy and what he did. All those things will come out in trial. And so I think that goes to moving forward with the racketeering case. That goes to proving the racketeering case. So that would be something that I'm looking to the prosecution and their racketeering case in chief to be bringing out those individuals.
It's also been interesting that Diddy's attorney, Mark Agnifilo, has been kind of adamant that his client will take the stand in his own trial. What are your thoughts on that? Given, isn't it criminal defense attorney 101? Don't put your client on the stand. So I just kind of want to know what your thoughts are about if Diddy takes the stand, what that could look like, and if this is something you would advise him to do.
As defense attorneys, it's our job to advise the client. And so we give them advice and tell them, okay, well, I don't think this is a good idea if you take the stand because this can happen, this can happen. All of these negative things can happen. However, it's the client, is their right if they choose to move forward, it's their case. If they want to move forward with taking the stand, then it's their case. They have the choice to do that or not. Now, if I was Diddy's counsel, I would make sure that I have warned him, and I'm sure he has warned him of all of the implications that can come along with someone who is taking the stand as the defendant. The prosecution has the right at that time to question him about any and everything at that time. And so it's not at a good it's not a good position to be in, I would say, for Diddy to take the stand at this time with the information that we currently know. Again, as this continues to move forward and additional information comes about, then it may be something that may be to his interest to take the stand. But at this current time, with the information that we have, I don't think that is a good idea for him.
All right, Bridget Williams, I always appreciate your insight. Before I sign you off, anything else about this case that you would like to add?
The individuals here in Texas who are stating now that they are bringing forth claims against Diddy for sexual assault, they're fighting their own battles. They're going to have their own battles to fight against Diddy, separate from the individuals in New York. And that's because, again, their battle here is going to be fighting against the statute of limitations here in Texas on the civil and the criminal side. And so they're going to have to work with their attorney, and that attorney is going to be looking at when these offenses occur, or when did they say that they did occur. And that's how he'll know if he's able to move forward on a civil case or a criminal case if he's
out Sean Diddy. Wendy Williams was one of a few who actually called out Sean Diddy Combs in his heyday, and her career suffered because of it. Now, with everything we're learning about the disgraced mogul, turns out she was right. Now she's breaking her silence. Welcome to Diddygate coverage here on Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor, and I've been curious to hear from Wendy Williams, hoping she might chime in, given that she was one of the very few who was speaking out about the mogul way back in the day. Now, before we get to her comments, I want to go back and sort of remind everybody about their history. They had a lot of run-ins, most notably in 1998, when the mogul allegedly got the then radio show host fired from her Hot 97 gig, at least according to protege Charlemagne the God, who mentioned it during a appearance on the Flagrant podcast. Here's that clip.
I didn't think I was going to see a video like this.
I heard abuse whispers. So
Really?
I was thinking, yeah.
I heard gay. I'd never heard porn.
I always heard gay.
Gay nonstop. And that was enough. People were like,
That's because of Wendy Williams.
What'd you say?
Oh, that was Wendy. Wendy's whole thing was Diddy was gay since the 90s.
She knew, dog.
No, Wendy was
We
throwing
owe
that
Wendy
out
an apology.
there. That's why Wendy got fired from Hot 97. Wendy got fired from Hot 97 by Diddy because that's when Bad Boy was smoking hot.
Wow.
And yeah, she got fired for putting that out there. Like,
do you think that Diddy held on to the gay rumors so that people didn't know what he really was?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Because that's the perfect smokescreen. You'd rather people think you're gay than be.
Wait, here's the wild thing. We still don't know what Diddy is.
I mean, we
That's
know
the thing.
little.
We know little. We know bits and pieces.
Yeah.
This shit might be deeper than rap. We don't know. Like, this
The
might be a
rabbit hole
whole
can get
rabbit
crazy.
hole. You might be like, oh shit.
Well, turns out it is. Now, who knew how deep the rabbit hole goes? That's the current question. But the rumors about Diddy have been going on for a long while. And yes, Charlemagne wasn't the only one calling this out. Former bodyguard Gene Deal alluded to this as well in an interview with Art of the Dialogue. You started the conversation earlier about what did I mean about the power of Puff had with the radio stations in New York. Mother effers didn't breathe hard if Puff didn't want them to. Puff got one of the hottest DJs off Hot 97 because she wanted to put up a picture of him getting his pants pulled down. Puff told a Hot 97 if they didn't get rid of her before he got back in New York, that they was not going to get any of his music from any of his friends and any of his record label executives that were cool with him. Everyone was going to boycott their station. We was out in LA for about 3 days before we landed back in New York. Wendy Williams and the radio station in Philly, it was over for her. She was fired. So you got to understand that's the history here as we're going back to sort of understand why we're curious about hearing from Wendy Williams. Now here she is breaking her silence about Diddy, saying it's about time. Getting the quote here. What's really weird is I've been told by so many people, Wendy, you called it, she told the Daily Mail exclusively, including some people from my family who have said the same. Popular host said she was doing good in the wake of her aphasia diagnosis and her health concerns. That's good to hear. She was horrified at the video of Combs with Cassie in the hotel lobby.
as she says, you know how I feel about that. It's about time to see this video on TV of Cassie getting, it was just horrific. But now you have to think how many more times, how many more people, how many more women. It's just so horrible. So again, really nice to see her out there getting justice, if you will. She called this out. She was sort of criticizing him, saying it wasn't really out there. And now it turns out she was merely at the tip of the iceberg. There was a lot more. Now there's another clip that's gone viral featuring Wendy Williams. I don't know how I feel, but a lot of people saw it as her being shaken as almost a threat by Diddy. And now with everything we're learning, yeah, I could see a little bit of where they're coming from. Here's the clip in question.
As the mother of a now 16-year-old.
Who I met backstage, he
did?
He's a great young man.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
You represent a lot.
Now, look, at first I'm like, well, yeah, she's just like, oh, thanks for being nice and saying something nice about my kid. But the more we learn about Diddy now, 25 minors, Justin Bieber, Usher, I could see why some people are seeing the way that she stutters, the way that she pauses. Now, granted, she had issues throughout the show. We know that, but still there is a little bit of a, oh, you're bringing my son into it. You're talking about how nice he is. Great. As commenters are calling out, that was a threat. Let's watch it again. What do you think of that?
As the mother of a now 16-year-old.
Who I met backstage,
he did?
He's a great young man.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That laugh right there is like, oh God, don't go anywhere near my kid. Don't touch my kid, dude.
You represent a lot.
He sure does represent a lot. And now at the time there was some good. He was trying to, it seemed to do good. There is a little bit about that. But at the same time, now after everything we're learning, this is not a good look. What do you think? I want to hear your comments down below. Do you find that as a threat? Some of the commenters said, a lot of people were in there reporting on it. Some of the reactions, that was a threat. He's saying play nice. Another said the way that she hesitated, you know that she knew about him. It looks like her mind is quickly flipping through all the different horrifying things that could happen backstage. The way she wanted to say, you stay away from my son. Another said, I can hear her internally screaming. Again, again, we got no proof of that. I got no proof of that, but with everything we're learning, yeah, it does seem like there could be a little bit of that. Now, Wendy Williams aired for an final episode in June 2022, after 13 years, without Williams May herself making an appearance. Previously withdrew from the show in 2021. Embarked what was initially supposed to be a temporary leave of absence to cope with her health issues. Some fans have claimed that Williams has still been on the air. Had she been on the air, she would have highlighted the fact that she warned of his alleged behavior a while ago. And yeah, as we saw that clip, it does look a little bit like a threat. I'm not going to lie, but interesting to see her finally be able to come forward, break her silence, and admit that it's about time. Look, should we be outing people? Is that really anybody's business? Typically, I would, of course, say no, it's not anybody's business. But the way Diddy then, wanted to sort of use that as a, no, that's not true. And when we're learning Diddy, it's clearly true. You were clearly going both ways, if anything. And she was onto something. Now, some people criticized her, saying, how dare you? It's nobody's business which way he goes. But I suspect she was on, she was just starting to figure it all out and realizing that this man wasn't being honest. That's how I take all this. This man likes to be in control, likes to control the narrative. And the fact that he was able to threaten her off the air, get her fired, it's again, shows his controlling, ABUSC. Sorry, I keep spelling things. Guys, I'm happy that we are prepping an uncensored show. It's going to be on our members portion here, our members portion on Patreon. There's so much I want to be able to say that I can't. There's speculation and things coming in, theories that I want to talk about that I feel like don't really fit here on this platform. So please, if you haven't already, consider joining. In fact, I don't know if you can join.
Kofi, follow me.